Welcome to another Q&A session here. Thanks again for tuning in. We're going to be going through a bunch of questions and answers here that basically make up a whole bunch of different questions and themes and topics and stuff like that that come up either through our email, social media, YouTube, whatever it may be. You know, we pick stuff that is going to kind of encompass all the different things that we see happening commonly in terms of these types of questions. And then we're going to go through about 3 or 4 here to kind of like dive a little bit deeper into stuff. It's just, again, it's our way of like, as we put out content, you guys, the community, are asking the questions and diving deeper into stuff. And then it causes us to go, okay, let's dive deeper into that question. And so we put out this video to ultimately expand upon the topics. And this is essentially us doing this together. So this is pretty cool. And we're excited to be doing this stuff. So let's get into the first one here. We're going to go with this first one here is Janet from California. And she says, "Hi, Joe and crew. Thank you for your work and the courage to get the truth out. I found both Kathy O'Brien's and Christy Allen's stories, though gruesome, very compelling. The message of Bonya's disempowerment," I don't know if it's Bonya or Bugna. It depends on, I guess, what language you're talking about it from. Bugna's disempowerment was perfect, uplifting, and hopeful. I personally believe that the more yuck that rises to the surface to be illuminated, the better, and a good sign that we're getting somewhere. So a huge heartfelt thank you to you guys at the bottom for exposing the sludge." Now there's a few more things here, but first let me address this part of it because this is so important. And I was actually really, really excited to read this particular email because this is a really, really important point that even sometimes, it comes up in our own office from time to time where it's like, why do we need to, or why are we covering some of this stuff that seems a little darker, or that seems a little bit like, oh, it's, going into some of the pedophilia stuff that's rising up here. In this particular case, Kathy O'Brien and Christy Allen's stories are typically about MK Ultra and mind control and stuff like that. And why is this stuff important? And it's like, okay, this stuff is coming to the surface. The world must be going into this extreme, like, dark space and all this sort of stuff. It's the exact opposite. And this is the illusion that we're falling into when we, and she has a beautiful perspective of this. But we fall in, there's an illusion that a lot of us are falling into where we're looking at this and like, nah, there's no point of talking about this stuff. This is just bad and this is just evil. And it's like, well, hold on a second. Why are we here? Why are we on this planet, right? We're on this planet to have a physical experience. We're on this planet to have a physical experience with other people. We're all on this planet together. Not only that, but we're not here to just be meditating and hiding in a cave and doing this all day. We're here to create a world out there that we all co-create and collaborate within. And so you'll hear people talking about, oh, we just need to focus on the solutions and nothing else. It's like, well, that's not a possibility. Because one, the solutions that are actually going to change our world have to come through a shift in consciousness, which is a shift within ourselves. Otherwise, we're going to be creating solutions that are just through the exact same level of consciousness. How do we shift that state of consciousness? Well, we first have to realize what our unconsciousness, so the fact that we've been kind of just operating through life, through the mind, not through the heart, sort of walking around like zombies for a past while, like that's what collectively our experience is. Individually, some of us are all doing different things. But collectively, our experience, we've kind of just been zombieing through life here. So we need to break the illusion. We need to start seeing what our unconsciousness has created. When we talk about the cabal, the deep state, all this sort of stuff, we look at this is allowed due to our unconsciousness, due to the fact that we have not seen clearly what is going on and we continue to remain ignorant and put our eyes closed and all that sort of stuff. And therefore this stuff continues. And it's not going to stop until we see it, face it, evolve beyond it, and shift our consciousness to the point where that can no longer exist. And I believe we talked about this in the last Q&A. If not, I apologize because I don't want to get into every single deep detail about how this functions, but it's mainly to just touch on the fact that we do have to bring this stuff to light. And just because you're bringing it to light does not mean we're bringing it to light in a way where it's like, it's super negative. That's what we do here at Collective Evolution. We look at this stuff from the standpoint of like, okay, here's what's happening in our world. Great. Just because we're going to talk about politics from time to time, or just because we might talk about some other thing that might happen in the world, doesn't mean we're talking about politics in the same way that, say, alternative media and mainstream media are talking about it. Here, when we're creating conscious media, we're looking at the underlying impacts it has on our consciousness and how our consciousness is creating the realities around us as a collective. So politics, for example, is like, okay, we're looking at this is what has been created as a result of this disconnection, this left-right paradigm, our fighting against each other. All these different things represent how our consciousness is operating. So we step back, go into our personal lives, and start making changes within. Why do I always have to pick one side or the other? Why does it always have to be right or wrong and this and that and looking at everything through this lens? And as we make these changes within ourselves and within our consciousness, and then we begin acting from that, it starts to impact the way the world around us operates. And the more of us that do this, the more of us that get on this boat of actually doing the internal work, to just read the news and stuff, it's not part of it. That's only one part of it. There's a whole other part, which is processing, doing the work, moving through our own limitations, our own challenges, our own stuff that comes up as a result. Right? And for Janet here to have this perspective of being able to see, hey, you know, when this stuff comes up, we know that there's a difference being made, that things are coming up and we're starting to see the truth. And the more yuck that comes up, the better. And it's true because it's showing that this stuff is no longer going to remain hidden, that we're ready to see what's been going on. We're ready to face some of the darker aspects, as we call them, of our world and what we've created and what our unconsciousness creates. That way we can face it, move through it, evolve beyond it, and shift our world, right? And that's what this is about. So, thank you for having this perspective. And I know the email I sent back to her was, again, thanking for that, because this is an important piece. We so often think that it's like, oh, hey, just keep writing articles about how we can, observe our ego and stuff. Well, we've written hundreds of articles about, going through the ego and going through personal development and all these sorts of things. And that's great. We have hundreds and hundreds of articles about that stuff. But there's only so much you can do before, okay, well, either we have to build a course on this, which is stuff that we're working on, or we have to now start taking those important concepts and applying them to our real world. Right? Which is what this is about, because so much of what happens in the spiritual community is it's like, oh, well, just keep doing my thing and ignoring what's going on out there. Because if I ignore what's going on out there, it's like, oh, I'm ignoring the negative. That stuff's all negative to look at. The economy, talking about the economy is negative. It's bad news. It's not. It's only bad news in your perception. And this is the challenge, is that when we view it that way, we trap our consciousness in that state of being, and we trap our consciousness in polarity, in viewing things as right or wrong or good or bad and negative and this and blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff. And when we do that, we can't see the truth. We've said this, probably hundreds of times again, but we got to start seeing the truth here. So yes, it is important to see this stuff. Now, does it mean that we focus on it constantly? No, it means we look, we see, we understand what's going on. We see how this impacts our consciousness, ourselves. We shift the conversation, right? This is what collective evolution does. Sometimes people will read a headline on collective evolution and think they know the whole article. It's like, well, that's not what the article is, right? And it's like, we got to stop doing this. This is such a bad habit that we have as a collective, is we'll read a headline and like, oh yeah, we understand everything that's being said there. Oh, I read the video title in maybe the first 3 seconds. I get that whole thing. It's like, no, just because it's talking about, say Trump and this, or, this emerging technology, or this, whatever it may be, there's so much more to it, where we explore the depth, the value, the impact on consciousness, what this means for us as beings, how we evolve through this, how we change the conversation, how we change ourselves. That is the stuff that's within the content. Right? Maybe not every headline can reveal every little detail of consciousness that we're going to go through in that article, but that's impossible, right? Right? So it's like, we got to remember, we got to get back to doing what this process is. And the last thing I want to touch on before we continue on here is, we seem to be wanting, everyone keeps saying, what's the solution? How do we just help people? How do we just get through it all? There is no quick fix. There is no one thing. And there's a lot of trendy stuff that's going on right now, and And when I say this, I'm not saying that there's no value in plant-based medicine or plant medicine and psychedelics. But right now, the trend is that, yeah, this stuff will fix you. You do it once or whatever it may be, and suddenly your perspective has changed. That's it. You never go back. You're good. You've taken the red pill. You're awake. You're, out of the matrix, Neo, blah, 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 all this stuff. It's not true. And I know that because I've witnessed it through countless and countless and countless and countless people who've gone ceremony after ceremony after ceremony after ceremony, and nothing changes. And the reason for that is, and of course this is not everybody's story, but the reason for that is if we don't commit to the work that comes after, we go nowhere. We have not made a shift. We have not made a change. The plant doesn't go in and change everything for you and then suddenly you come out the other side and you're fixed. This is a Western egoic trap that we have. Other places in the world don't go through this level of thinking. They recognize that this is a journey and we have to commit to it, and there is a practice. And with conscious media, it's about continuing to explore, to expand, to evolve, to take the information, see what it means, digest it, go slow, enjoy the process. Right? And it's the same with the stuff in the work that comes with spirituality. Go through the process, enjoy it, experience it, right? So we got to get out of this trapped mindset of two things. Number one, viewing everything as negative, and we can't look at this stuff. If you have that perspective, you probably are spiritual bypassing somewhere on some particular thing, or you're still polarizing your experience, right? Look back to what is this showing us? Why is this happening? How does this reflect collective consciousness? How can we evolve beyond this? What does it look like? Ask the deeper questions. We can't just stop and say, oh my God, yeah, this stuff's happening, and then just leave people at that. No, because emotions come up. People are finding out that there's MK Ultra, that there's pedophilia, that there's these things going on, and it brings up emotions, it brings up despair, it brings up hopelessness. So we can't stop there. We have to continue. We have to ask the questions. Okay, what does this mean for us? How do we process this? How do we move through this? How do we get past the childish behavior of just going, oh, those people are wrong, they're bad, they're evil pricks, and this, that, whatever, we do all this stuff. That doesn't lead us anywhere, right? What is that? We have more turmoil inside. We're projecting turmoil. It doesn't lead us anywhere. So we got to go back to asking the questions. And I know these are hard questions, and I know it's difficult to look inside and to process the stuff, but that's what we got to do. So this is a process. We need to go through this. We need to commit daily practices, daily reflections, meditation, writing things and feelings and stuff out, changing the conversations that we have with others around us about these things. Every time you're at the table and you start talking about politics, instead of getting into the back and forth about, oh, Democrats versus Republicans and all this stuff and Trump's this and blah, all these things, forget that. That's the old world, the old paradigm. The new paradigm is how we talk about it. Okay, well, why do you feel like you need to be so identified with one side or the other? What is that about? Okay, cool. You feel that you need to identify. Okay, where does it lead us that you're so identified? You have 300 million people in the United States that have been so epically identified with either Democrat or Republican for all this time. What has changed in the last, even 3-4 decades? Nothing, right? We're still repeating the same cycles over and over again. So are we stuck in this process of polarity and choosing sides and the identity and showing up and voting and doing all this stuff? Is it really leading us to where we want to be? These are deep questions we want to ask. Okay, so now how do I shift my own perspective, my own actions, so that I no longer support that system and that way of doing things? Change the conversations, help others see that as well, and over time, this process, which is not going to happen overnight, over time, it will unfold. We got to get out of this mindset that it's like there's one solution and that solution's coming and we're just going to do it. The longer we stay in that, the longer nothing changes. The longer we continue to repeat the stuff. We got to just open up the conversations, keep shifting, stay neutral, stay in touch, keep questioning, stay in the heart, keep going through this stuff. The more we do that, the more we evolve beyond the need for the old, because we begin to understand what the old actually was to begin with, which is a big part of this process and why this stuff needs to happen. So I'm going to stop ranting here. Thank you, Janet, for this part of your question. She goes on to say here, I think your idea of becoming sustainable is a good one. As one who lives in California on the Central Coast, in an oversaturated job market with very little jobs, I know that being financially stable when you're not financially stable, it's disempowering. I understand the feeling. I mean, I will say we still feel very empowered in our message. Like we still feel like, hey, we can do a lot, but on the physical end of, doing things in the world, there's only so much money to go around. There's only so much we can do on certain things, but we truly do feel that that is changing. I tried to find a donate button to give what I could. If you've got one, I still can't find it. So on that note, we are working on adding more of a campaign that we're going to be running that brings this movement together. That brings together, we're going to be, this is more about taking all of us as viewers and as creators and all this sort of stuff in this conscious media movement and realizing that if we want a conscious world and if we're shifting consciously and we're collectively going through this experience, then we need to start actually having conscious media that we dive into, that we explore. And this is an important part of this process that we have. And we all engage with it and we all create it. And all of this work, even the conscious media end of it that we're creating, first comes from personal work, doing the consciousness shifts within self to be able to have the perspectives, to be able to then look at what's going on in the world and produce the media from that point of view of saying, hey, I'm looking at this open and clear of all the old biases and the old paradigms, right? So this is a movement that we're all got to come into and we're all supporting and we're all part of it. We got to bring together citizen journalism. We got to bring together conversation. We got to make this happen. So we're launching a campaign very soon centered around all that stuff to help make this, sustainable. But ultimately, this is about a bigger cause, a much bigger mission, a much bigger movement, which is bringing conscious media to the world. That's what this is about. So maybe this could be added to the daily emails in addition to pushing the yearly subscription. Little amounts like mine could add up, as Bernie Sanders found out when he was squashed by the DNC. Funny story, absolutely, if you recall that. So anyway, I hope this helps. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, Janet, we appreciate your question. We appreciate your feedback, and as well as this idea of creating something where we can all put in micro amounts. This is important, and it was totally on our radar. We should be launching it sometime soon. Again, we appreciate you. Thank you very much for passing this along. Now, I kind of got myself out of order here a little bit, so I'm just going to figure out where the heck I am here. Okay. Let's do this one. So this one is unknown. I say this is from unknown because when you put up Instagram stories, what happens is you put up a poll and people respond, but then of course with Instagram stories, shit just disappears the next day. So you write down the question and then you go back to go get the name of the person, and then it's like, oh yeah, that's gone. So I don't know. I unfortunately don't know who it is, but this did come from Instagram. I apologize for whoever did ask this question. I'd love to say, hey, thank you for doing this and add your name in there, but this is from unknown, unfortunately. So do you believe the mainstream media are no longer journalists, but actors pushing agendas? Now, like the first one, I'm going to get amped up on this one too. Like the first one, this is a big question and it's really important. And I'm going to start with a little baby story here. I got a bunch of comments when I released the QAnon video. And I was talking about how I believe the mainstream media was clueless in understanding the QAnon situation. And, I got to look at this and I got to look at myself first, right? So I look at it and I go, okay, I'm getting some comments of people saying, the mainstream media is not actually clueless. They do this on purpose. And I go, you know what, you're right, but you missed my point. And so I got to look at myself first and I say, I wasn't clear enough in my point. When I actually look back at the video, I'm like, I could have done a better job of explaining more deeply exactly what I meant on this particular point. And so now that this question has come in and there's a number of different aspects to this, we're going to talk about them. We're going to dive into it. So using the QAnon thing as an example, the first thing we got to understand in the mainstream media, and again, this goes back to being able to look at things for what they are and not for trying to create a clear black and white situation. So, we like to think, as this movement even, the mainstream media, well, they're all bad. And all the journalists are bad. And everybody involved, the video editors, everybody, even the people that, whatever they do, even the smaller tasks going on there, well, they're all bad. And they're all under the control of the elite, and they all have the elite in their ear. When they get to work, they open their desk, they put in the little thing, and they go, okay, I hear the elite the whole time telling me what I'm going to do. That's not how it works. That's not what happens, right? when I was making this QAnon video, I was specifically referring to specific articles that I can pretty well guarantee you through my 10 years of experience in doing this, that those particular journalists had really no idea what the elite perspective would be on this particular thing, but that they were writing the articles based on what they thought through their narrative, through their programming, through what's going on there, right? When you start to really break down what's going on here, the Illuminati, the elite, the deep state, the cabal, however you want to look at it, they create ideas, right? And they disseminate these ideas. And in some cases, they will hire individuals that will have relationships with key individuals in places of power. This may be in politics, this may be in corporate, this may be in media. And those relationships become a voice in the ear with those specific people. And then sometimes that information will trickle down into the company where need be. But much bigger than that is the fact that they've created a collective consciousness through their programming, through their information, through how they create their media, through all this stuff, right? They've created a level of consciousness within the collective consciousness that most of us operate off of as a collective, if we're looking at all of us, that buys into the narratives. To us, we've been told hundreds of times that conspiracies are, you're nuts if you even question anything. Therefore, when a new conspiracy comes out, the elite doesn't need to go be in the ears, newsroom director, make sure that they do this. They don't even have to do that because we're already so programmed that we go, these goddamn conspiracy theorists are crazy. And then, we write our articles and so mad at them, like the cat gif where the cat is like smacking the keyboard. That's how I picture a lot of these journalists writing, is they're just angry and upset that like people would even question that, something like QAnon or something like that Trump is doing, or even that other conspiracy theories could be even real, And so this is an important thing to remember, is that a lot of this, and this is why we go back to the collective consciousness and the consciousness message, a lot of what we're operating off of is what the elite wants us to operate off of, and they don't even have to be in our ears about it because they've programmed the way we operate in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying they came in there and put in your brain and they programmed it. It's more so through repetition, through things like film, through things like the music industry. We were having a conversation earlier about the music industry, and we were talking about Maroon 5. We were talking about if you listen to Maroon 5's music at the beginning of their career, when there was passion, when they were excited, and there was feeling and soul and all this stuff into their music, and you feel it, and you're like, you listen to it, you're like, I feel something. There's something here, right? This is, this is beautiful. And then all of a sudden they just started to change. And then the last, I don't know the number, but probably 4 or 5 albums, probably more like 4, have been complete and utter, there's nothing there. There's no feeling, there's no soul, there's no energy, there's nothing. It is what the music industry does to people. And this is just a process that takes place. It's like, it's about stripping out the feeling so the collective no longer has the ability to even tap into self. What happens is it's like you produce media, you produce music, you produce everything that is pushing people to stay right here in their mind, in their ego. And people's lives typically reflect that. And when you see the music people listen to and that they're into constantly and they're doing this all the time, and it's holding them in their ego, holding them in their mind all the time, which is, again, the majority of top 40 music is doing this to people, it's void of feeling. And then it makes us void of feeling. Because over time, that type of energy that emanates from the sounds, from what's coming through, is gone. It's not there. It's now just electronic sounds, and there's no passion, there's no soul, there's no feeling, right? And so when you spend time not listening to that stuff for a while, even just take a break for 3 weeks from any form of music, and then start listening to more underground bands or more underground artists. Doesn't matter what genre. It's completely irrelevant. Whatever genre you want, but that aren't, the big name sellout type things that you feel have like the deep connection, the deep message, and listen to it and you'll feel it. And then go put the radio back on and listen to top 40 stuff. You'll immediately, within a second, you'll notice it and you'll feel it. And this again goes back to this. It's like it's not that all of these journalists have, they're just completely pushing agendas. they're pushing a collective state of consciousness that's already within them. The agenda doesn't even have to be handed down because it's already there, right? Are there certain agendas that come down on specific things that then go to the newsroom director and say, hey, make sure this story gets out? Absolutely, that does happen. But again, case by case basis. We have to look at this. We have to be grounded in our approach, like we talked about in the last one. We got to be grounded in our approach. We throw the baby out with the bathwater and we start talking erratically about how, oh, mainstream media, everything's an agenda. Oh, that person right there, yeah, if you pause the video here, you see a reptilian tongue coming out of this particular news anchor on this local news station, therefore reptilian. You know, if you pause this, it's like, well, hold on a second. Reptilians exist, but that's not a reptilian situation. When you talk this way, when you get extreme about it, and when we go through all this sort of stuff, and we make it so that it's like everything is about, oh, pushing agendas and blah, 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 and everyone's in on it, it's very easy to pick apart that that's not true. And when you do that, you start making it so that others don't want to awaken or can't awaken to the truth because they're looking at it going, yeah, you know, that's pretty extreme what you're saying, and it actually makes absolutely no sense. But when you come from a grounded perspective, you take the evidence, the facts, and the feelings that are available, and you really get people questioning, and you do it from a grounded perspective, you could change people so quickly because they're open, they're ready, they're there, they're wanting to receive. And that's why this is a great question, you know, because we need to begin looking at things on a deeper level like this. The other example I want to give is this, and this goes back to the the music industry and goes back to media the way it is and why certain things are projecting this level of consciousness, which is already just there. It's already just happening within people. So I'm going to use this card as an example. So my buddy, back in the day, we were walking home from school and there was a thing sticking out of the ground, probably like 3 feet out of the ground, and it's plastic, and it basically marks where there's a gas line in the ground. I mean, it's plastic, but it's very like bendable. Like you bend it like this and it shoots back just like that, right? So he didn't really know, I guess, how this thing was gonna react. So he just runs real hard. He jumps at it with his foot, you know, like jumping through the air. He kicks it. His foot goes over top of it, and then you see what happens there. The thing snaps back and hits his inner thigh of his other leg. So he's in massive pain. We're laughing our heads off. It was like one of the funniest things that I'd seen, you know, probably that year, because it was just so loud too. It was just like this big smack. It was so good. So anyway, the point I'm making with that particular thing, humanity is that pole, okay? Humanity is that little thing there. And with this media, with the music industry, with the films, with maintaining our old paradigms, maintaining our emotions of anger and upset and being stuck in all this stuff. What we're doing is, and what the media and all this stuff is doing, is it's holding us down like this. And this card is not going to flip back, so it's not going to look as cool, but it's holding us down like this constantly. And every single year that goes by, as collective consciousness continues to shift, even on a monthly basis, they have to put more pressure on this to hold it back. Because why? Our natural state is there. Our natural state is to be, boom, right there. And they're pressing so hard. We want to flip back. Our natural state, if you allow it to happen, we want to flip right back. But we resist it. And all of the stuff around us makes and enforces that resistance. It puts it in place, right? So every time there's more and more media, every time we dive into more and more the food, the stuff that we're eating, you know, not practicing meditation, not getting into this stuff, you know, staying in the anger, all these different things that we get into, it holds us here. You start to let that go, boom, we snap right back to our natural state. This is why we see every 5 seconds, you know, the distraction constantly on this. Constantly. This isn't bad. This isn't evil. This isn't hurting you. This isn't, you know, I mean, sure, some of the EMFs, but this isn't the problem. It's the way we utilize this that's the problem. And you know, that's another thing to look at. Same with this thing, right? Oh, laptops, computers, social media, all this stuff. So it's all a massive problem. It's destroying everybody's lives. No, it's not. That is us taking our finger and pointing and blaming. When in reality, we got to do this. I choose how I use this. I choose whether or not I even buy this. And then now suddenly it's this fault, this person's fault right here. Every single company that speaks to you through that is also trying to pay people and do different things, and that's what they got to do. So are there people fighting for your attention? Sure, absolutely. But it's your choice as to what you give attention to and how you utilize that information and how you actually, take time to say, hey, I'm going to slow my life down. How do we get ourselves to just snap back? What does it look like to let go of some of this? Well, like we were talking about. So stop watching the mainstream media. Stop watching alternative media that doesn't make you feel inspired within your heart, that doesn't ask you to question things on a deeper level where you're asking, what does this mean for me? How do I move past this? How do I understand what's going on and have a grounded, level-headed, level emotion conversation about it? Meditation, getting back into these states, right? This helps us remove some of this crap, right? Get away from a lot of this mainstream programming, some of these television shows, some of these, a lot of the music industry, a lot of this stuff. It doesn't help the cause. It's continuing to program, continuing to keep us in the ego consciousness. So take breaks from it, experiment. I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong. I'm going to tell you, go take this path for a little while, reflect, see how it felt. Go take this path for a little while, reflect, see how it felt. There's no rush. This is a light experience. We're supposed to enjoy it, go through this process, and that's it. And there's no right or wrong. And there's no, well, I started this path, now I'm afraid that if I get off this path, everyone makes fun of me, and just play with stuff. Try different things, experiment, enjoy, be light with it, right? Get into meditation, play. If you don't clear your mind right away, that's okay. It could take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. The point is, the more you try, the more you put yourself in that space, the more you're loosening up this foot that is on this thing, and it's allowing you to slowly snap back to our natural state. And our natural state is, peace. It's love. It's collaboration. It's an evolving, allowing our consciousness to evolve like this, as opposed to, I need to study first, and I need, this to happen first, and I need that. It's like, we don't need any of that, right? Just get back to our natural state, connect with self. The body knows, right? Get back to that state. There's going to be comments about, Joe, you just went off topic. I don't even know what you're talking about anymore. That's okay, because I think what was said was still valuable. I think I covered everything I wanted to talk about with that particular one. Probably went on a little bit too long of a rant, so I'm going to probably cut a question. I'll do it quickly. This is from Darren. He's just talking about how I was wondering why I was not receiving email updates, so I decided to register, and he got a message that the website had been flagged. And yet he hadn't flagged it. So he's saying, I love your website. I love what you guys read. It's strange times, all the different stuff that's going on. So just to quickly touch on that, and why we wanted to bring this one up is just, if you are subscribed to our email list, which is like, we're making our exit from Facebook. We're slowly doing this. It's not something we can do immediately in our business. It wouldn't make sense at all. But we're working towards it, right? And so bit by bit, we're pulling our stuff away from there. Subscribe to our email list. I'm going to put a link in the description. But if you can, add our email, the contact@collectiveevolution.com, collective-evolution.com, to your contacts list so that it comes to your inbox. We've heard a number of people say this exact same thing where they're like, I don't get your emails anymore. What's going on? So just to be clear that I answered the last one. Mainstream media one, just to really drive it home, where the journalists, are they pushing agendas? Just remember that it's like, some people in some newsroom, individuals, are they getting paid to hush and do certain things? Yes, Richard Doty has disclosed that to us as a whistleblower. We've seen that. We know that's happening. Does every journalist at these places, do they know and are they all in the deep states in their ear? No, that's not how it works. It's not how it functions. They're operating off of collective consciousness, which is programmed to think a certain way, and they just respond that way. It's usually emotional. They're usually putting people down. They're usually shit talking, and they're usually providing you absolutely no solution or value at the end of the day. So that's an important thing to remember there. And yeah, let's just get on to the reader love here. So this is from Cindy. Joe and staff, I personally want to thank you for the tireless work you all consistently put out. Thank you. Being a fairly new follower, I see so much value in the articles and topics you are bringing to the forefront. It's troubling that a reader would make a comparison as they did. you all need to support your lifestyle, family, etc. So in that particular case, she's referring to the email we shared with everybody where someone had sent us a pretty aggressive email, and we showed our response to it and kind of just what took place there. So that's what she's referring to. On the flip side, the concept of free has been on my mind because a family member consistently tells me there is no value in free. I suppose it depends on the lens you are looking through, but through my lens, free is a gift to be treasured and is without the stigma of a price tag or some invented value system someone made up the full ego with the full ego attached. Sorry, I think there's a bit of a missing word here, but maybe the compromise is in donation-based or barter system. I don't know. Thank you again, and I look forward to reading and doing. I look forward to the reading and doings of Collective Evolution. I have not heard something said in that way, so I read it incorrectly. Again, Cindy, thank you so much for this feedback and for saying this and for even bringing up this interesting idea about free and the value. And you know, it's an interesting point because from a marketing perspective, you know, when I talk to our marketing side of what we do, it's like, oh, you know, should we release stuff for free and this and that, or what should we do? Well, primarily like 99% of our work over the past 10 years has all been free. And, you know, it's always the case. And so for us, it's like, okay, now from a marketing perspective, what do we do with some of the new things that are coming out? Do we do it free? And then sometimes the question is, oh, but people won't see value in it. And it's like, well, we've seen that happen, but we've also seen people see great value in free things. So is it something that you can cast across everybody? No, but you know, as Cindy brings up here as an interesting question, it's like there are a lot of stigmas that we put towards everything, whether it's paid, whether it's free, whether it's, you know, not expensive enough, or whether it's too expensive, or whether, you know, we all have belief systems and different things that we run off of. And the interesting side to it is, as much as these consciousness exploration type questions that we can dive into as to why something might be priced the way it was and all these different things, like when we sit and we talk about, we're sitting in our office and we're talking about, okay, you know, we got to do this and we got to figure out what price tag to put on it, or we got to figure, and we go through all the, like, you know, deeper consciousness reasons as to, yeah, but then someone may view it from this belief system and someone may, you know, we can go on all day about that, but then we usually come back to, okay, let's close our eyes for a second and think, where is the collective consciousness really at right now? How can we really, you know, provide something that kind of hits that point, right? And this is typically how we come to our decisions on this sort of stuff. But you know, thank you for your feedback. Thank you so much for, you know, appreciating our work and all that sort of stuff, and for even providing a little bit of an idea of how we can get some things done. You know, if we release a course and we decide, hey, you know what, pay us what you think this was worth, you know, absolutely, why not explore that option, right? It's all about asking ourselves what it is that we value and what we think that value is. But to note, we are going to work to make sure that conscious media is funded, to make sure that we get things done, and to make sure that we can still make it as open to everyone as humanly possible. That's what we're hoping to do here. So that's it. That's all I'm covering today. I intended on having this one be a little shorter than the last one. I'm afraid to look at the timestamp after I'm done this and be like, oh, I don't even know how long this was, but thank you again for tuning in. Thank you again for your support. Thank you for, you know, bringing in these questions. If you do have any questions, contact at collective-evolution.com, and we will surely answer them and do our best. So, you know, again, we'll get back to it on email, but if it makes it to these types of videos, it's going to depend on the different stuff that's coming through and kind of what the collective is asking for. So thanks again. We appreciate your support, and, you know, we'll see you in the next videos.